Alright, hello everybody and welcome to another episode of How To and Review. In this episode, we're going to be installing the wiring harness for our 2016 Land Rover Discovery. This fits a 2015 up to, I believe, a 2019. It is Curt wiring harness 56297. So before we get started, let's go ahead and click that like button and subscribe for future content if you haven't already. So in our previous video, we installed the hitch on this 2016 Discovery with the help of my trusty sidekick here, Maverick. Helped me. It was quite an ordeal trying to get this in. So with this installed, we used this initially just as a bike hitch, but today we're going to be installing the wiring harness so we can pick up a brand new motorcycle, which will probably be another video. The first thing you're going to want to do is open up your side compartments here. This is going to give you access to pull off the taillights. And the basic operation of this is we're going to take the taillight off of this side, the taillight off of that side over there. We're going to take plugs that are going to connect into both ends of these, marry them together underneath, and then run the wire up to the ground. And that's pretty much it. Of course, that's easier said than done. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the first part of this is we're going to open this up, and of course, if you're going to do that, always grab your wife's scissors because she'll yell at you later. So let's go ahead and get this guy open. Well, before we cut it, can we actually pull this apart? Let's see if we can do that first. And by gosh, by golly, you can just open this up. So no cutting required. Yep. Sorry, wife scissors. So when we open up in here, we have a couple of different components. This is our fuse, and this is going to connect to the battery terminal up front. This is our cap that's going to go on the end of the 4-pin trailer harness. And of course, in here we have our different wiring harnesses, and let's take a quick look to see how this is laid out. Here's our controller. This is the actual connector for the hitch back here. You can see it's a 4-pole hitch. And this guy is going to go right in here and connect it to the wiring harness itself. Inside here we have some twisty ties. Looks like we have the fuse, which is going to hook up to the battery, as well as some crampets. Or crimp-ons, which is actually kind of cool that they include that. This wire tubing, what this is going to be, oh, actually I take that back. This is not wire tubing, this is actual wire. So this is going to be the ground that's going to run from this all the way up front. Now, what's interesting is I believe this was supposed to come with some type of tube to stick down the top to the bottom, but I do not see that in here. So we're going to have to get a little inventive. So we'll see how that goes. So for the first step of this is we're going to have to remove the headlights. And if we look inside here, you see this little white screw. Let's see if you can see that in there. That is, we have to pull that out. That is a 10mm socket, which is pretty standard with this. In most automotive, it seems like almost a lot of this stuff is going to be a 10mm. So we're going to go through, we just stick this in there, and we just start turning. You can see this just comes right out. This is just a piece of plastic. There we go. So we have this disconnected. Go ahead and hand pull it out the rest of the way. And there we go. And let's take another look in there. You can see that's what we had to pull out. And that's going to give us access to pull out the back rear taillight. So conversely, you're going to find that there is a vent that's over here, and you're going to do the same thing in here. And if we look, we can see our same 10mm socket right in there. Let's just go ahead and get this out. This one's a little bit tougher to get to, but you can still do it. There we go. And it being rubberized, I believe it's rubber. I don't think it might be plastic. It does bend. Obviously, you don't want to bend it too much because you don't want to break it. All right, and there we go. So now we've taken this out. All right, so with these out, our next step is going to be to take out our headlight assemblies. And all you do is you take this, and you're going to want to pull straight back. Probably have to wiggle this a little bit. You might have to move this trim just a little bit to get it out, because this is blocking this just a tad. And to do that, you just pull gently over here. You can see we're exposing the flashing for this, and you pull and it gently comes right out. And if we look in here, you can see there's a little depressed tab right there. We're going to push. I feel like that's a lot of these things, isn't it? Oh, there we go. Okay, so this disconnects into there. And then what we're going to end up doing is we're going to take our one socket and put it into here. And while we're at it, we might as well go ahead and get the other side out as well. So we're going to do the same process over here. We're going to unhook the weather stripping on this side, exposing this, and then just gently pull this back out. The same exact process. Pull on here and pop that out just like so. All right, so with our headlights removed, we can go ahead and putting in the wire harness itself. All right, so basically what we're going to do is we're going to take this, and this is going to form a bridge between this and our headlight down here. There's going to be two ends. The one end is the longer side. Over here, you can see this is connected by a singular green wire over here. That feeds into here, and notice it's much longer. The reason is this is going to go down and then underneath and then pass back up on the other side. So we start from the exterior, and you're going to connect this into there like so. Alright, so we're going to have a couple of different things we got to do. Basically, we're going to have to take this green wire with this plug and shove it down. See that hole down there? Actually, is it hole or is it over here? Yep. See down here, now if you can probably barely even see it, but inside of there, there is a hole which you can go ahead and theoretically you could shove this whole grommet section down into. It's going to be pretty tight. I mean, you could maybe get it in there that way, but I think it's going to be easier actually just to snip the wire and then reconnect it up on the other side, which makes a lot more sense to me. So I think what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and cut the wire itself, and then we're going to reattach it. So let's go ahead and do it like so. Alright, so with our wire attached, we're going to have two missions here. We're going to have to get this wire down there, but we also have to get this ground down as well too. Now, this ground obviously is snipped here already, and we're going to be connecting it to our long wire here. And this is already pre-cut. And this is a pretty thick wire, which makes sense. This is going to have to go underneath the vehicle, so it needs to be a little higher grade. Because it's stiffer, we can probably use this to snake this end of the wire down. So we're going to go ahead and grab some electrical tape, tie these together, and then push these right down that hole. Alright, so I know I said electrical wire, but for this, I'm going to actually use, to start out, at least just some duct tape. Because as everyone knows, you can fix just about anything with duct tape. And I misplaced my electrical wire, so I'm going to grab that, or electrical tape, I'm going to grab that a little bit later. So basically, we're just going to turn this into one piece, so we can guide this through. And let's get to work. Alright, so once I fed this through, I did see it coming through, and it's coming through actually, I don't know if you can see that, but right inside of here, you can see the green wire is actually coming through on this section right here. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to fish it out from underneath there. What I ended up doing there is just moving that foam more outside of the way, just to give this a little bit more breathing room to pull this down. And I do want to be gentle pulling this down because I don't want to stretch these wires. All right, so at this point, we have this pretty as far down as I think I need to get it. Eventually, we are going to have to splice this black wire with this wire down here. But that is good enough to go. I did disconnect this just to get this out of the way. We don't need to put this on until after we basically finish all of this. So there's no reason to drill this up just yet. So now that we have this down, we need to fish this green wire out to the other side. All right, so now that we have this fish down, let me grab my light so you can see just a little bit better what I'm looking at here. So you can see this is our view of the wire coming through. We're basically going to reconnect this and put this so we can connect it back up and route it back up top. All right, so we went ahead and we pulled the wire through. So we're just, as we mentioned, going to do the opposite. We're going to tie this and yank it back up through the top up there. So let's get out our handy little snippet of duct tape again. And I gotta say, you know what? Duct tape may be the way to get, it leaves a little bit of a residue, but this stuff is so strong, there's not much of a chance of these coming apart, really. All right, and that's in there pretty, actually, you know what? I just put that in backwards. Ah, well. Basically just make this into one big happy little wire here. All right, so now we can go ahead and fish this back up. And there we go. We've run the wire to the other side, and you can see it was actually kind of tight, but then again, we don't have it tucked in. So the next step is we're going to go through, we're going to tuck this down underneath here, keep it nice and secure. So let's take a quick look, see what we're looking at here. Actually, it's already pretty tight, so I think we're actually pretty good there. So we can kind of just run it like that. And I think I'm actually going to be pretty happy with it. Just like that. We have a little bit more room where we can pull it just a little bit more. But I think overall we're pretty good. All right. All right, now that we have this out, let's go ahead and find the right connector for both of these. It looks a little bigger. I don't think I can get away with my blue one now. I picked this kit up a bit ago off of, I think, Amazon. And actually it works pretty good. I want to give this gray one a try here. One thing that's did come with, which I love, are these heat shrinks. Makes tying these up so much easier. So, of course, when I do this, what I like to do is if I have one that I know I'm going to shrink up and over top, I'm just going to add this on here so I can slip it back over later. There we go, perfect. Put that back in here and just push it through. And we'll get that back in there later. All right, we're going to splice in the other end of these banana connectors. And these did not come with the kit. I have these on my own. Oh, and I didn't do what I wanted to do, but I think I'm still okay. Nope, did not take anyway. So let's try that again. Much better. And let's go put some plastic sheathing on this one as well. And we're going to heat shrink these later just to protect them up. But for now, we'll just go ahead and test their connection. All right, and there we go. We're good. We have a good connection for the tail light over here. And our last connector, we already have this set up, so we're just going to de-sheathe this. And this is a pretty substantial wire here, so hopefully we can get this in here. It's definitely going to hold on. Yeah, I held up forever getting one of these crimping tools for wires, and let's try to go to the next size down. And I gotta say, this is actually one of my, that's gonna be too big. Take a look at I think it's gonna be a yellow. Pretty wide wire. Let's try that one more time. But it is so handy, this thing, let me tell you. I'm going to try just to over crimp it just a little bit. Alright, that's one there now, definitely. We're going to take our other end here. The same thing for our banana end. Perfect. Alright, so we can just connect these guys up now, and we should be good to go. Perfect. Alright, and we'll go ahead and we'll cinch these up later. So at this point, we can... One last thing we got to do. We have to take our white grounding wire, and we are going to secure this to the vehicle. Go ahead and do that. We don't want to put it on a weld, so we'll put it right here. And hopefully you can see that. I know it's getting a little dark out right now. Alright, so as a recap of where we are at, we went ahead and we fished our wires up and down through here. I did have to take the 4-pin connector, push that back down the hole, connect this right over here. Overall, this has been relatively painless overall. I'm going to put the headlights on, obviously, when we finish up. I did drill in the hole. Camera kicked out just as I finished that up, and we connected it right through there for the grounding wire. So our next steps, basically, what we're going to, I mean, I guess I could have used their crimpers here, but I'll just use my own. That's fine. So our next step would probably be to go ahead and connect our headlights and get all this done, which we're going to go ahead and do. But I'm not going to reinstall these just yet, because before I do that, I just want to obviously run all this through to make sure everything works, rather than having to tear everything back apart to redo it. Now the good news is, headlights still working. And of course, if that didn't work, there'd be a major problem there. Because that would indicate there's an issue right here at the fault, but it is good to see that at least. Go ahead and connect. We'll do the same thing over here. Alright, so we're set there. Last thing we have to do is we have to run our power wire, or live power wire, underneath the vehicle, through the front, through the trunk, and get it going. So for this, we're going to load this up onto our lifting platforms and wire it underneath. All right, so with our Land Rover up on ramps in the back, we're going to go ahead and feed this forward underneath. But before we do that, we need to gain access to the battery, which of course in Land Rover anything is way more difficult than it should be. All right, so what we need to do, pretty simple, to get to the battery on a Land Rover Discovery Sport, you undo these plastic screws here. This is going to give you access to the battery. It's interesting to actually change this battery. It's an AGM battery that comes with the Discovery Sport. Oops, let's not lose these. You actually have to take not just this off, but you have to take off this whole cross frame here too to get to it, which I do not believe we're going to have to go that extensive. What we're going to be connecting to, I believe, is the positive terminal, which is, I believe, this guy right here. Let's see if we can find a plus sign on this. Let's take Pepper's light, take a look. And yep, there's our positive connection there. So that is our positive end. We already have it grounded out. All right, so let's get to work. All right, now it's going to get a little tricky camera-wise here, and I'm a one-bear operation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to funnel this up through here, but the one thing I do not want to do is I do not want to touch that exhaust. So I can't really go, I have to be careful here because this is the heat shield, which actually is okay to go through. We just have to make sure that we don't actually touch that exhaust. So let's go ahead and get the end of our wire here. If you can see that any better, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to route up through here. Let's get some light in here. Now, in case you're wondering, this is just a light I got from Costco some time ago. Don't want to lose that back there and melt my light back there. There we go. Oh, that was good, Brian. Alright, so basically now we have this shimmied through, as I mentioned. We're going to pull our wire back up, and here is our ground wire. And I'm going to trace the path I took. Basically, I followed the existing brake lines in there. And now, if you can see this grommet here, we're just going to try to fish it up in through here. Oops. Oh, let's not pull all this off. Which I just did. Which I didn't want to do. But that's okay. Let's go ahead and reinstall this, and that's interesting. Re-strip it some more. Alright, so there we go. Go ahead and connect this into there. We'll figure out where we put our crimper in here. Somewhere in this mess. Oh, there it is. Alright, put that on my biggest setting, and that did seem to work. Alright, and we took Pepper's scissors, made probably too healthy of a wire exposure here, but that's okay. Ooh, this is just such a big connector. It is hard to get in there. Or just a big, thick wire, I should say. I wonder if I can squeeze this at all with this. This actually might make it too flat. Bad idea. Alright, well that's, see, we have some exposure there, but that's okay. What we're going to do is we're just going to trim that piece. Alright, so I went ahead and just trimmed that back some. And that should, gosh, it's so thick. This is such a thicker gauge wire than I feel for these connectors that they supplied, but I think that's going to work. You know, I'm not happy with that connection. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a heat shrink wrapper on this, and we'll cover this up later once we get this on to help seal this up some more. I'm just not happy with how shallow this is going in there. Alright, so we got it in pretty well. Let's go ahead and try crimping it. It's a good crimp though, it's a pretty strong hold, so that's good. And we'll go ahead and heat shrink these up just a little bit later. But for now, we'll just go ahead and cover it up. There we go. And what, in case you're wondering what I'm putting on here, these are heat shrink wrappers. I can take my heat gun lightly and it'll go ahead and shrink these just like a little shrinky dink and help seal that up. All right, so we can see there is our fuse there. We need a 13 millimeter to pull off one of these leads here, which is what we're going to do. We're going to connect that right in there. And we probably should shorten up this wire. I'm just going to twisty tie and put this underneath. We have so much room in here, I'm not really too worried about the excess wire. And I'd probably have that extra, I'd rather have that extra wire in there in case, you never know, maybe I have to reconnect something later on. So we're going to go ahead and redo that. Alright, so this is a 13 millimeter bolt. So we can just go on there, take that off. Now obviously you want to be careful, this is a positive terminal. Going to take our lead, snug that right in here, and then refasten it. And yep, I think I'm good there. All right, there we go. And of course, we need our fuse in there. All right, and at this point we should be functional. Now of course we're gonna have to clean all this up, tie everything down, put everything back together, but for now I do want to test this. I actually don't have a 4-pole connector that's coming off of Amazon tomorrow, but for now we can at least use the multi-detector to see if we're getting current coming through. And because this is pretty much a plug and go, if one of the systems is working, they should all be working. So let's go ahead and fire it up. All right, so let's go ahead and turn on our turn signal. And we should see a pulse coming through one of these leads back here. We can see that our headlight is blinking for a turn signal there. So let's go ahead and test this out. If you don't have a multimeter, these are pretty awesome to use. I use this so often to test things. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look. We'll go ahead and make sure we got this on the right. We do. And I believe I used this earlier to go ahead and test this on my Jeep not that long ago. Let's go ahead and get our wire out of here. And we'll take a look to see what we have happening. Oops. Get that in the right one. And we might have it set a little bit too high. Oh, we got something now. And you see that blinking on and off. If we go to here, it's constant. So that's indicating this middle one is working, which is the turn signal, I would think. This is probably the lights themselves. If we turn this off, this will probably turn off. And that is a constant on as well. All right, so we are finished up, and what we did basically, at least we're finished up wiring. We went ahead and we routed our wire up through here. And I'll show you just real quick how we wire this into here. And again, these are, somehow I lost one. These I'm going to have to find a replacement. So that's not good, but it's not terrible. And all these are basically large plastic rivets that go in, that screw in and screw out. But what we did is we wired our wire up through the back here, up and around, tied it up. Thought about cutting it, I didn't. And pretty basic. And again, that's a 13 millimeter when you go to put that back on. And of course, putting these back on, what you do is you squeeze these all the way out. In case you haven't done this before, you push it down and just snap it in place. You actually don't have to screw it in. There we go. And the last one into here. All right, and that is locked in place. We'll get that extra piece. It probably fell down there somewhere. And what we did is we wired the wire through here and just kind of went straight down, following the existing lines that are coming up. Basically, I believe we followed the brake hose line basically up to here, because if the brake hose can get up there, then the wire should have no issues. Underneath, just to briefly show you what we did here, is we went ahead and we routed the wire along the existing line here, which you can see it kind of tucks in. Found out I actually have some damaged plating down here, which I'm gonna have to replace. No big worries. And then we routed it up through there. And then the big thing is you want to make sure you're not kinked in the suspension, and obviously not touching the exhaust too, which does make it a little bit tight. But as long as you kind of follow the existing lines of where wires and stuff are, you're pretty good. And then down here, we basically just went ahead and we wired up the harness, just as the zip ties to secure it down underneath here, so we can pull that out as needed. And the only part left here is to put it all and finish it up and put it back together here, which is going to be pretty straightforward. Starting over here, we need to secure this. So what we're going to do is, this does come with a sticky pad, and you're going to want to stick this. Well, let's take a quick look to see what the best spot for this is going to be. So this is going to go in flush here, and you can see that this is going to mount and seal this area right there. So we can't go here, we can't go there. Actually, I almost think the best area is going to be somewhere along here. So let's just get this reinstalled for now, right? We can always revisit this and make it perfect later. Alright. Plastic piece here. Reinstall that. And let's, nothing should be, I don't think it's this. I think it's just trying to get this. So what we have to do is we have to get this back into there to let it line up. And yeah, it's just kind of going back and forth until it magically decides to reorient itself. And I'm not sure how well you can see what I am doing here. We're basically going to take this and reinstall that right into there. And it was back in the package. So that's going to finish this up. This just lassos around here. This is going to protect this from the elements, and these do go bad. I actually had mine in my Jeep go bad. I had to replace it once. So always have these covered up. Previous owner of the Jeep of Sarah did, that's the name of our Jeep, did not. And you can also use this to fasten, theoretically. There we go. Come on, GoPro. There you go. Just like so. Kind of give you a way to dock it into. And of course, you're going to want to tuck this or tie this down if you're going to go off-roading, because this could probably get snagged on something. It's one way only. So let's flip it the other way. So much trouble with this. There we go. All right, and we are pretty set for now. All right, so that's going to finish up our installation of Curt wiring harness 56297 that goes with the 2015 to 2019 Land Rover Discovery. Overall, I'd say the installation's pretty easy. I think most people could do it. You're going to need a 10mm screwdriver, a 13mm socket. You're going to need a crimper or something you can use to crimp. And that's probably about it. Now, of course, this is just the wiring harness installation. Now, if I do have a video on how to install the hitch, and that is a lot harder and a lot more time consuming, so take a look at that. But just for something basic like the wiring harness, relatively easy, which you kind of expect. These are usually pretty plug and play. And there you go. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please click like and subscribe for future content. It really does help out the channel as I'm trying to get this piece in here. Get in there. Nothing's ever easy with a Land Rover, is it? There we go. Anyway, I hope to see it again in a future video. And until I do, get out there, make your own great outdoor adventures. And as always, take care.